My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins, and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. What I like about today's Gospel is how James and John asked Jesus for the top job in his kingdom, suggesting therefore that they were ready to take the authority and burden such a position would bring with it, but they actually get their mother to ask for them. Just imagine someone asking the president of a country to be his or her vice president or some similar top position, but actually sending their mother to make the request for them. It would be laughable. I want this position of enormous responsibility, but I'm too shy to ask myself, and so my mum is asking for me. I can't see the president taking such a request seriously. Now, when I was a little boy, I remember once being out in a park with my granny, and we were sitting down watching some boys playing football. I must have shown some desire to play with them, because my granny suggested I did so. I can't remember if she encouraged me to ask the boys myself, or whether she offered to ask for me. I guess it was the former. But when I was clearly too shy to ask myself, she, in her great love for me, asked on my behalf. And I did play, and I enjoyed it a lot. But what I most remember is my granny's love, and her concern for me to play, and her asking the boys for me. Well, when someone's only a child, and someone asks on their behalf for them to join a football match or something similar, that's not such a big thing. But if two young men need to get their mother to ask someone else, in this case Jesus, to be senior ministers in his kingdom, it just shows how unsuitable they were for the job. Indeed, what's so amusing about this episode is how many ways James and John get it wrong. Really, their errors would make a long list, a whole catalogue of errors. We've already seen one, their immaturity, seeking great responsibility, but going about it as little children. And then the very nature of their request through their mum is another big boo-boo. To have the top jobs in Jesus' kingdom, sitting one at his right hand, the other at his left. They've got the nature of Christ's kingdom completely wrong. Jesus, you told us, my kingdom is not of this world, and the kingdom of God is within you. You told various parables to stress the hidden, interior nature of the kingdom. And whenever the Jewish people tried to make you their king, you slipped away. It was so clear that you had not come to earth to establish a political, territorial kingdom. But right to the day of your ascension, the apostles, and no doubt James and John with them, asked you, Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? Even after your death and resurrection, they still sought an earthly, political kingdom of Israel. Only after your departure did they get the point that your kingdom was spiritual and more linked to heaven than to earth. Then not only do they get wrong the type of kingdom Jesus is bringing about, they get wrong the nature of seniority in the kingdom. They want human glory, to sit visibly and ostentatiously on either side of Christ in his kingdom. It's naked pride and ambition. But you tell us, Jesus, and this is the principal thrust of your answer, that greatness in God's kingdom comes from humility. So when the other apostles get annoyed on hearing the request of the mother of James and John for her sons, and they're only annoyed because she got in there before they could, they would have made exactly the same request themselves. You tell them all, Jesus, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The truly great in God's kingdom are those who are most humble of all, those who most make themselves a servant of others, and not those who try to lord it over others. And so it's no surprise that the greatest human being of all in God's kingdom, the one clothed with the sun and with a crown of 12 stars on her head, is you, Holy Mother, the humble Virgin of Nazareth, the one who kept on describing and seeing herself as God's lowly handmaid. It's true humility which most exalts us before God, whereas pride brings us down. Humility is like being a balloon, empty of everything, so God can blow the gas of His grace into us and raise us to great heights. But pride is like having a heavy lead weight inside us. All the heavier, the prouder we are, which only keeps us down and can even make us sink. But Jesus, though this is your big message from today's gospel, the big takeaway you offer us, the lesson of humility, I want to focus today in this time of prayer on all the ways we can get it wrong. Also often a catalogue of errors, as we see James and John getting it wrong in so many ways. Because I think it's an important part of our self-knowledge, an important part of our spiritual growth, to recognise the many ways we get it wrong throughout the day, and even perhaps in one single activity. We need to start spotting these errors, because if we don't, we won't progress in our spiritual life. So to imagine an example, we decide we need to speak to someone about something we think they've done wrong. But straight away we've started to get it wrong ourselves, because we're annoyed with them and we want to correct them while still angry. And that only ever makes things worse. And we can only think about the wrong they've done, or the wrong we think they've done. And we fail to recognise all that they've done well. And obviously we don't think about all that we've done wrong. And we fail to consider whether, even if we weren't angry at that moment, this is the best time to point this thing out to them. Because maybe they've just come in from school or university or work, and they're tired and flustered, and are unlikely to take well at that moment what we want to tell them. And what's more, we're acting too humanly, and we haven't prayed about this thing and considered it in the presence of God. And as a result, we fail to consider how God might want us to respond in that situation. Maybe on this occasion, He just wants us to offer this thing up and let it pass, pick our battles, and this shouldn't be one of them. And then, having started badly, we go from bad to worse. When the person, not surprisingly, reacts badly, we respond in kind, and in our anger we dredge up from the past various resentments which have been festering inside us, and we've never managed to forgive. We've got a whole list, a catalogue of them, of their supposed errors, not ours of course, some dating back years. And as we focus only on their errors, it's their fault not ours, we don't grow or improve. And I could go on, or think of another example altogether. But we do need to see, and you want this from us, Jesus, the many ways we can go wrong, the many ways we show pride, naked ambition, but also the many ways we expect others to do our dirty work for us, and we use and manipulate them. And we get wrong the very nature of what we should be aiming at. We should be aiming at heaven and service and humility, and we're seeking earthly glory and power and recognition. But Jesus, you tell James and John something else which is an important lesson for us too. When the two apostles, I repeat through their mother, ask for the top jobs in your kingdom, a false kingdom they've invented with their over-fertile earthly imagination, you answer them as follows. You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink? They said to him, We are able. He said to them, You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those to whom it has been prepared by my Father. This shows another error on their long list of them. This time they err through omission, through not factoring in something they should have thought about, the need for suffering. Part of our getting it wrong is to want success always to come easily. We want to achieve glory walking on a soft carpet with adoring crowds acclaiming us. Well, Jesus, you tell us, it doesn't work like that. Christ brought about His kingdom through suffering. His throne was the cross. Jesus rules from the cross. Yes, He rose to glory and is seated in glory at the right hand of the Father, but always through the cross. Jesus, you drank fully the cup of suffering. At one point your human nature rebelled against drinking this cup of suffering, but you overcame the weakness of your nature and affirmed your willingness to drink the cup to the full, or in other words, to suffer everything you needed to suffer for our salvation. My Father, if this cup cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done. You are teaching us, Jesus, that to work with you in the salvation of the world, we too have to be ready to suffer. Achieving human power and glory is not the way to save the world. The way to help you save the world is to be ready to suffer, to embrace the cross, to accept failure and frustrations, and not just aim at fame and visible success. So any attempt at success without the willingness to accept suffering, to embrace the cross when it comes our way, is just another error. We're adding to the list. Now James and John both ended well. Tradition tells us that St. James went to preach the gospel in Spain, where he's greatly loved. He then returned to Jerusalem, and the Acts of the Apostles tells us about his death. He died a martyr for Christ, beheaded by King Herod. He was, in the end, ready to share Christ's cup of suffering, and we celebrate his feast today. And this is encouraging too. We can get it wrong in many ways, but as long as we're humble and ready to admit our errors, Jesus can still use us as his instruments, and we end up getting it right. So we ask you, Holy Mother, Queen of the Apostles, to help us recognise our errors honestly and humbly, which we do best of all through the daily practice of examination of conscience, through regular confession, and also through honest spiritual direction. Then our errors are quickly corrected, and we are put back on course to God. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections and inspirations you've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.